and it will tell us we are live on YouTube. Good morning and hello, everyone. We're just going to get set up. Give us a few moments here as we get set up on this beautiful Sunday live about the stories we tell ourselves. I'm going to send Gregor the link right now. And there it is. I'm rocking a pink sweatshirt, and Claire, my youngest, she goes, "What?" She goes, "Ew, that's gross." I go, "What do you mean? Great. No,
it's beautiful." Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. Well,
change it up.
Yes.
All right, we're live. We're good.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and happy Sunday. We are going to have a beautiful Sunday conversation today because we are going to track the narrator from within. And we're going to see if we can change the stories that we keep telling ourselves about ourselves, the stories that doesn't work, the stories that keep us stuck. We're going to explore that today. So I'm so happy for you to be here today and listen to this.
Yes. And the stories, it's so funny. When we met, I can look back drastically at the story I was telling myself stuck in versus now, and the freedom, because I've always been a storyteller, being a journalist, being on TV, my whole world was wrapped around story. But once we understand that we are free to write whatever story, tell it however we want, everything changes from that point on.
Yeah, it does. And it also, for me, when everything changed was when I actually realized that I do have a storyteller within me. I have a narrator that is narrating the world to me. And I remember a time when I didn't know this. I was thinking that everything I thought was just there. And if you sit down and you allow the stillness to be, you will hear how this narrator narrates everything for you. Like, I don't like that person, or that car has the wrong color, or oh my God, I have grass between my toes. I don't like grass. Who is I in that? Because I'm the one listening, and then I have someone that is telling me what I like and don't like. And that makes it easier to track the narrator when you hear that there is actually a voice narrating, telling you stories about the reality. You're the one exploring them. You're the one sitting there listening to this voice. For me, it was an aha moment. And this happened many years ago, I think 20 something years ago. I read a line in a book that said, "You are not your body. You are not your thoughts." And I was like, what do you mean I'm not my thoughts? Of course I'm my thoughts. And I realized that I am not my body. I am not my emotions. I am not my thoughts. I am the one thinking the thoughts. I am the one listening to the sound in my head. It was a surreal moment for me to realize that I do have a voice in my head. And before you know that you have a voice, which can be kind and it can be a horrible bully, you think that everything that happens in your head is there without your control. But when you realize that there is a narrator writing this story about you, telling you stuff, well, you can start choosing what you want to hear and not hear, what you want this narrator to talk about and not talk about. It's about realizing that there is a narrator there. And it's the ego narrating everything.
The ego, that nonstop chattering ego.
Oh, yes.
I was watching a video last night. This brilliant guy breaks down, he calls the ego basically an invading host inside. So we're the host, like a wasp will mind control a spider and lay the egg of the wasp in the spider. And the spider doesn't know that it's been mind controlled. So it will create a new type of web for the wasp. And then when the wasp larva hatches, it eats the host spider. And he was equating it to this I know. Well, Sir Darrow,
Gross.
they're the
It's
worst.
gross.
I know.
Yeah.
He was talking about the insect and the hive mind and
Mm,
groupthink and this very parallel to where we are today. He wasn't making the analogy
mm,
of where we are today. He was just talking about how the ego can hijack our own
mm,
natural observation of the world we live in. And he said the
mhm,
only way to get the ego out of your head is to constantly ask, who am I? Who am
mm,
I? Who am I? Who am I? And once we can see that the negative,
mm,
the voice that attacks us constantly attacks the
mm,
host, says
mm,
bad things about us and about others, says
mm,
is constantly chatter. He said that's how you can separate and free yourself of that. And I'm like, that's a
mm,
really, I don't think he was talking about ego per se, but it reminded me of the ego, it reminded me of the untethered
mm,
soul, that the voice is constantly running. And the only way to
mm,
detach from that's not my voice is to
mm.
ask, who am I?
Yeah, it's for me, it's about saying, I am here.
I love it.
Stopping and saying, I am here now. But, I usually talk about this and I cannot stop doing it this way. We cannot get rid of the ego.
Right.
What
Right.
we can do is recognize that the ego can have different voices. The ego can, it's like the black wolf and the white wolf in this, I think it's an Indian story
Hmm.
about the black, who do you feed? Do you feed the black wolf or the white wolf? You cannot get rid of them. It's both of them are there. It's a question of what filter the ego uses when it narrates your story. If it uses a filter which comes from the past, and we've talked about this so many times,
Yep.
it will take something that someone else put in your mind as a child. They told you, you are stupid. And you will look at the world,
Right.
allowing that part of ego, the black part of your ego, to narrate the world, giving you proof that you actually are stupid. And
Hmm.
that's the narrator within you. I remember as a child, because my father put a lot of stupid stuff in my head about myself. And I remember sitting in a cafe being 20 something years old. I wasn't even living at home. And I watched people walk by and I looked at them, and this was the narrator within me talking about, look at how happy they are. You can never be that happy because you are not intelligent enough to be that happy. And I believed the voice because I wasn't aware of that it was a voice, that it wasn't me. I was listening to it. And this is why I want to press so much on this, to remind people that you're the silence, you're the stillness listening. And
Yes.
you can say, no, wait a minute, is this true? Is
Hmm.
it me? Why would I say such a thing to myself? Usually it isn't you. It
Right.
is a program going on in the background where the ego tries to find proof for the negative stuff that it wants to share with you so that you can stay in victimhood or in fear or whatever the ego wants you to be in.
Right.
So just becoming aware of the stillness within when you hear a negative thought in your head. This is an alarm bell ringing in your head saying, uh-oh, you are falling asleep and the black wolf is feeding itself. So you need to become very aware, is this thought true?
Hmm.
And then saying, I am here, because I am is always limitless. I am is
Yes.
always loving. I am is always present. I am is always compassionate.
Yes.
And as soon as you are not being compassionate, present, loving with yourself, then you have allowed the narrator, the ego, to push a negative agenda on you.
Hmm. I I for a long time when I was in the Christian world preaching, I would say that there is a definite distinction. I did say this and I don't believe this anymore. In fact, I'm more understanding of what I used to say. But
Mhm,
in Exodus, God says, I am that I am. And then
mhm,
we can say we are what we are, but we aren't what that we are. This is what I used to say, because we didn't create ourselves. But now I understand completely that either we are in victim saying, I am what I am, and everything is like this voice is leading me, or I am that I am. And I am aware of the ego voice. And now that I'm aware, I am creating everything from that I am that I am. Nothing is, I'm not lesser than any other power structure, any other voice, any other predetermined force trying to sway me, because in that I am lacking nothing.
Exactly. You were born with everything. In the I am, you were born with everything. So if you are focusing upon some kind of lack, then know that it is your ego speaking,
Right.
and it is narrating the world to you from a very, very narrow point. It is not allowing you to open up. Your Katie, Byron Katie would say it this way. She would say, you're being mind movied by the ego, because the ego will show you mind movies of stuff that it thinks that you need in order to explore this reality. And I mean, sometimes it feels like you want to watch a feel-good movie, but the ego presents you with horror movies and disaster movies. It's like wanting to watch it on Netflix, and the Netflix gives you back horror instead of the feel-good movies.
Right.
Well, it is in your power to say no to the horror movie, because every time you go projecting yourself into the future, ego doing that, creating worry. And it says, for instance, what if, what if, what if? And you go, so what? So what? So what?
Yeah, that's right.
And then you're back. Yes, then you are back. So what? You're here to explore. You're not here to avoid. You're here to explore the entire world as it is, open.
Right.
And if fear is a perfect negative ego trigger. It will trigger you into those horrific mind movies, and it will not allow you to be present in the now moment, in the stillness of the now moment, without the chatter. Oh, I like this. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, this is horrible. Oh, there's something. Always distracted by the ego. When you feel that you're pulled all over the place, you need to breathe in. I am here, and breathe out, just to know that you are present. Also knowing who you are. As I said, limitless, calm, beautiful. If you do not feel that, then there is a program going on within you, a program which was put there when you were a child. I think that what I used to hear the most coming from my father was, who do you think you are? And I know that you've had the same thing. Who do you think you are? This, I think, a lot of people have from in their past, which creates this imposter syndrome. Every time you feel that, oh, this is going good, everything is going good, and then you feel like, oh, I can't do this because who am I? Who do you think you are is a program, and your ego uses that old program in order to stop you from feeling limitless, from feeling successful, from feeling open, because that is what the ego is supposed to do. It's supposed to keep you closed so that you won't become all that is. That is what ego does here. But if you allow it to drive you, if you allow that negative vibe to become your story, then you are not in control of your own life. And all the control is here. It's not outside. It is what you do with it. How do you talk to yourself? Do you have a bully in your head, bullying you out of being happy, bullying you out of being successful, bullying you out of writing your own story?
Yes.
If you feel like you have a bully in your head, then there is an ego going on there.
I'm looking for the book that I wrote called Everyone Has Planned Until They Get Punched in the Face, How to Develop Your Story and Achieve Your Dreams. And in it, I say, if you are not telling your own stories, then you're telling someone else's story for you. Yes. So you're saying, who do you think you are? And then it starts to become, we are uttering their version of our story. And the only way, and it's funny you say, so what? Like, what if? And to come to that place, so what? That's freedom. And I had a news
Mhm.
director tell me my very first day on air, I was live reporting in the morning. It's 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. the morning show. There was an apartment complex on fire. I reported that the apartment was on fire. I thought I did a good job. I told the who, what, when, where, and why. And then she said, "You never said the so what." Like, who cares about the apartment was on fire? Think of every person watching that doesn't live in that apartment. Are they affected by it? No. So what is it interesting? What's the interest to them? Like, gosh, that's such a good point. So there's a sixth question that makes a story: who, what, when, where, why, and then so what. And the so what is it's the click. It's the thing that has so much more power. And when you're saying so what, it's almost the click out of the fear. Like, well, what if?
Yes.
So what? And
Yes.
Paul wrote in the Bible, it says to live is Christ and to die is gain. And what that means is Christ means liberator, the anointed one to bring freedom, that we're no longer under the subservient role of a power structure, a system, our ego. It's I'm going to live free. So what? So what? I am fearless. There's no more. I just love that. That's so what is that's such, I'm gonna really noodle on that more, because that is the key to freedom.
Yes, it is, because what happens is that you annihilate the worry that is being projected by the ego. It's not about not caring what happens to other people. It's not about not caring what you do to other people. It's about not caring what the ego presents as a plausible future for you, which is in a negative space, because what you think you become. And if you allow the ego to think for you, you become something that so much lesser than you actually are. It takes away the dreams, it takes away everything, because you are not listening, or you are listening to a voice, but you're not questioning it. What I want us to do is to start questioning the negative aspect of things about ourselves. I mean, as I say, when I was a child, I was told, you are stupid. And if you hear this enough times, this is a program which becomes like water for the fish. You are not aware that you're treating yourself like your own bully. And this thing lives in your head. So it tells false stories about you and keeps you stuck in a place where you're not supposed to be, because you want to live your life. You want to be happy, but you don't understand why you can't be happy, because you have a bully in your head. You can't get rid of the bully. It is there, and it's supposed to be there. But what you can do is listen and ask, why am I speaking to myself this way? Why am I saying these things to myself? Would you say something like that? I mean, God, I am fat. When you look at yourself in the mirror, would you say something like that to a friend? You would say, God, you're fat. You wouldn't, because you know it's hurtful. And yet we allow the ego bully, to do this to us. And it's hurtful. We're hurting ourselves. So we stay in a too low frequency in order to create the life that we actually want. Because it's the frequency that makes the blueprint in the infinite field of possibilities. Why are we choosing that possibility? Of all the infinite possibilities, we are choosing the negative ones, because we are not aware of that. We are not choosing. It is the ego choosing for us. And someone else put it there in ego when we were children. So it's about becoming much more aware of the voice. I started listening to it and saying, why am I saying this? Is this true? Could I put it another way that is less harmful? That's the first step. Then you can go further. You can just be still and say, no, I'm not thinking any thought right now. I'm just being still. So I think the first thing is to become aware of that we are having different voices, and we can't get rid of the voices, but we can choose which ones we want to explore, which ones that are writing the story that we live, because our lives become the stories that we think about ourselves.
It's almost as if we will always tell ourselves the truth. The ego will tell us a lie because it's based in fear.
Yes.
And if we didn't have the ego, then us walking in truth wouldn't really be some great virtue, because it just naturally was. But we were introduced to the ego so that we could recognize truth is what sets us free. Truth, when I speak to myself, the natural world doesn't attack itself. A bear doesn't just start beating itself up for no reason or attack. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's the natural world that we are to come back into alignment with. But this anti-natural, low vibe voice, which thinks it's keeping us safe, perhaps is only keeping the host safe, so it can continue until we say, I hear you, thank you, but no thank you. I will reclaim the sovereignty of my own mind, body, soul, spirit, heart, all of me.
Absolutely. And this is what it is to be awake. You know how people always say, well, I'm spiritually awake. Well, you know what? That is not a goal. It's a process. You have to be spiritually awake every single now moment, and you can fall asleep like this. Like that. If you are not present in the now moment, you fall asleep, no matter how spiritually awoke you are. If you are not present in the now moment, if you allow the negative voices to pull you into fearful thinking or into harmful thinking about yourself, you are falling asleep and you are not spiritually awake. It's a process. It's not the end goal. I used to think that it was the end goal. You know, now I know everything about the reality. I know how it works. I know that my thoughts create my reality, blah, blah, blah. And then I fall asleep. The minute I get afraid, I fall asleep and I'm not myself. I wake up maybe hours later, wake up in quotation marks, and just watch and think, why did I do this? Why did I have this fight? Why did I say the things I said? Because I was not present. So I need to roll back the tape and watch, what did I do and why did I do it? Usually I don't even understand why I did it, because I wasn't there. And I realized that being spiritually awake is a process, and it goes on until my last breath here. So I need to keep, it's like a muscle. You need to work on it all the time. Being present is the basis of everything. And being present means that you are the guardian of what enters your mind. You're also the guardian of what goes on in your mind. And you can also evict everything that you do not wish to have in your mind out there. That is the power you have from within. We are only as powerless as we think we are. We can never be. That's right. Because all of this happens in our head.
I'm going to grab my book. I want to read a part.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead. It's like being very aware of your own presence.
Yes.
Because if you're not, then you are asleep. I can't find other words. It's about being present. That equals being awake. If you are not present, which we never are when we are in fear or in other lower frequency emotions, you are not present.
That's right.
Presence is the key here.
It's freedom. So in chapter 1, I say, up until now, you've never had real control over your life. Don't get me wrong, you've made decisions that have led to outcomes, but you've only navigated inside the confines of a presumed state of mind. Without questioning why you believe what you believe and who is the original author of what you believe, you've operated under false pretenses that you are free, but in reality, you're not. Without asking the fundamental questions that make up your story, you are like a person who jumps into a river and has no control to navigate against the current. You simply get swept downstream under the power of a preconditioned force. Even when you use your energy to stay afloat, you're operating under a power you didn't choose for yourself. This is exactly how most people live their lives. Don't let yourself get swept in the current without first knowing why you want to jump in and where you want to go. The only way to free yourself from your present state and become empowered to make decisions that will result in fulfilling your dream and purpose is when you develop your story. And That's what I mean. The ego is going to tell a story for you. You're fat, you're dumb, you're stupid. Who do you think you are? It's all these until we come and reclaim, I am whatever I say I am. I am beautiful. I am magnificent. I am brilliant. I am safe, loved, worthy, abundant, powerful. I am whatever I say I am. And we are whatever we say we are. And it's a great gift. It's also such a loss that people forget. We can just step out of the current any moment to reclaim and say, wait, who's talking here? Is that, am I speaking this? Did I come out of the womb speaking such heinous things of myself? No way. So if I didn't originally say this, whose voice is this?
Exactly. And sometimes you can track the voice back. Usually you can track it back to a parent or a bully or a teacher, or whoever you felt was an authority in your life.
Yeah.
I know that I had a pattern in my life for maybe 25 years or so, where I put everyone else before me. And it was natural to me to do so. It was natural. I thought that was the way you were supposed to live your life. And then when I started tracking back those thoughts, I realized that I was scolded if I did what I wanted to do. I was always supposed to be busy. I was always supposed to be doing something productive in the home, like cleaning or making food or washing, doing all the things that Cinderella used to do as a child. I remember seeing myself as that. I could identify myself so well there.
Wow.
And if I wanted to do something that I wanted to do, like read, my father would scold me because he felt like I wasn't productive. So I learned very quickly that I need to put other people's needs before my needs. And then I can sit down and do things that I want. I remember when I met my husband and he said, so what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know, because I haven't been doing it. So I told him, well, we'll do what you want to do. And he says, no, I want to know what you want to do. And I was like, I knew what I wanted to do, but I felt fear to say what I wanted to do because I thought that he would be angry or that he would like me less, or even worse, to scold me like my father did. So this is what the filter does. And in my head, it was like, you can't say what you want to do. He might laugh at you. This is what I heard in my head. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And it puts me in a place where I look like I don't have any desires. I'm easy to manipulate. And that's not the truth about me. I have lots of desires. You can't manipulate me, but I need to be in contact with that version of myself.
Right.
Which is always there. The program will always take over if you are asleep. So I needed to wake up to this. A question like that, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know, because I haven't practiced it.
Right.
And if I practiced it, I would be scolded. So you learn very quickly. I cannot say what I want to do. As soon as the I am in me says, oh, let's do this, the ego would go, nope, not doing that. You need to do this and this and this first. And then if there's time, you can do that. And this happens in my own head. I'm alone when it happens.
Right.
So just asking, why am I doing this to myself? Why do I not put myself in the place where I'm supposed to be, in the front, doing things for myself, keeping myself happy? Couldn't do that unless I track the narrator and ask, why are you saying these things to me? These are not true.
Right. Gosh, it's tragic that most people don't awaken to the fact that they can free themselves. It's truly a tragedy. It's even asking, what do you want? That's such a basic question. What do you want? What do you want to do? When I was at the emotional intelligence training that I went to years ago, you had a partner and they say you have 60 seconds and the partner has to go, what do you want? 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 You keep asking, hammering, and I have to answer like, I want, and they're like, what do you want? Like say it, and overriding the ego. Like we have to learn to override the, what's happening? What are they going to say? Like, no, I want, whatever it is. And once we can come from that place of what I want is, I would never go back. I wouldn't trade. You couldn't pay me all the money in the world to go back and live in that state. Never.
It's a horrible state because it's a horror movie. It's a horror movie in your head.
Yes.
You cannot like it. And that's what it is. You know what? When you were talking about this, I was thinking that there is another program which I think a lot of people are under, and that is that my time is not my time.
Yeah.
That is, my entire childhood was about doing things that others wanted me to do, which actually programs you with your time is not your time. Doing what you love feels like your time. But how often do you do that as a child? I didn't do it at all. I had to sneak out. I had to trick, and I had to almost like lie in order to have this time for myself. So what it taught me was that my time is not my time. I am, and that creates a mindset of victimhood. It creates a place where you feel powerless because you cannot fill your time with your desires. And this is also why when someone asks you, what do you want to do? You don't know how to answer it because you have never done that. Your time isn't your time. You are not filling your life with the experiences and explorations that you want, but what others want you to do. And this is why it's so important to start listening to that voice that says, you have to do this before you can do that. Ask yourself, why do I have to do that? Why? What do I want and why? And what if you exchange it with so what? And you start freeing yourself from the ego's restraints. Start to listen, teach the ego to speak about the beauty, to speak about the beautiful things, to speak about how you can fulfill your desires instead. And that you do by focusing on what is it that I want? Because that also is an ego thing, but it's a positive ego thing where you are in control of it.
Gosh. It becomes so simple, it becomes really gentle. I think that when we're not aware how simple it can be, the ego can be harsh, it can feel harsh. But once you understand that, oh, I hear you, thank you, no thank you, and I will, and I've been playing with this idea, talking about contrast, like what I was saying earlier. If we just lived in truth but didn't have contrast of a lie, then there would be no virtue in our choose. We never chose it. Then by default, it wasn't our own. But what a cool gift that we are given, that we do have the ego to remind us always to choose truth, so that we can, at the end of the day, say, I chose my own freedom. I chose my own sovereignty. I chose my own goodness. I chose whatever story we are the most heroic protagonist of any story in our own lives. We can be that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is about recognizing the ego as a tool, recognizing that the ego will tell you positive stories and negative stories. And you have both of them because you're in the middle of all this listening, and you have the power to choose which story seems more plausible to you, which story will bring you closer to your dreams, not pull you away from them. Ego tells you both of these stories. And as you said, we are here to explore how it feels to look at what we don't want and say, I want this instead. But you have to be able to understand, what is it that I want? And if you have this narrator telling you awful stories about the reality, then you will feel like you're pulled into a direction where you do not have any kind of power. And that is the ultimate lie in this reality, because you are the creator of everything here, which means that you do have power. And the power is in the choice. When you hear the voices, choosing the voice that is the kindest, the voice that wants love instead of hatred,
Yes.
guilt, not habitually allowing the voice to abuse you.
Right. Right.
And I know it's not, I mean, it sounds easy when you speak about it, and it is easy, but you have to start doing it. And that is the hard part, to start doing it, to track the narrator, to say, wait, is this true? Wait, is this what I want? Wait, why am I telling myself this? Wait is the key word here, because it gives
Yes.
you time to think. It
Yes.
gives you time, and that time is your time.
Right. Right.
You can create that time any moment when you say, wait, no, not that thought, I choose this one. And you can feel the power within you when you do that choice. When you start doing it, it almost becomes a little bit addictive, when you feel the power to say, no, not that thought, this thought instead. Then you watch what happens, because everything changes
Right. Right.
when you start doing that. Your frequency becomes different, which means that your reality will mirror back something else to you. If you can sense the power in choosing, reality mirrors back more opportunities for you to explore that power and to feel that power. That is why you need to start asking those questions. Is this true? Why am I doing this to myself? Why am I treating myself this way?
When I was a reporter, when I first started out, I'd ask people questions. So I'd say, we were talking like, tell me what you saw. Did you? And I would follow up with a second question right away, and I would always ruin their sound bites. So I'd say like, tell me what you saw. Did you see what? And they would start talking, and I would always have to clip, and I would always ruin these sound bites. And I was watching this ABC reporter interview some farmers in North Dakota when fracking first came out. This is back in like 2005. And he asked this farmer a question. I don't recall the question. And he just looked at him. And it felt like forever. It felt uncomfortable. I felt uncomfortable with that space. He just looked at the farmer, and the farmer looked down, looked back up, and told the most authentic answer. Yes. And I realized that in that space is where the truth comes out. I kept clipping because I was in fear to not get the right thing, or wanted them to feel comfortable. Like, tell me what you think. Or, like, I need to make you feel comfortable, but actually holding space and pausing is what makes someone feel comfortable. So what you're saying is it true? And do I want this? And is this actually me? And waiting. And then deciding. That's a powerful place to come from.
Absolutely. To start treating yourself as a friend. And ask yourself, would I say this to a friend? And then silence. I think that we live in a society where everything has to go quickly. You have to answer in school. You have to answer. You can't sit down and think about what you're going to answer. You have to answer immediately. This is how you program people to say stuff that they don't mean, because they have no time to think, is this what I want to say? And that's why I can't remember what you said or why you said it in an argument, because you're not giving yourself time to be present and looking at the other person actually being in the conversation, because you're asleep. And I cannot go around this. When I say that you are asleep, it's not literally that you're asleep, but you're not present with your soul. You're only allowing the ego to interact. And this is because we are usually ego triggered, and the old program starts the old way of looking at things, which we have learned as children. it is habitual. So it starts every time your ego is triggered.
Right.
And your power is to push the stop button and say, no, let's see what I can see here from a different perspective, from my true perspective, which is calmness, which is love, which is
Mm-hmm.
fearlessness and courage. What can I see if I look from that perspective? This I have learned every time I have an argument with my son and I start thinking, oh, he's not listening or something that is negative.
Mm-hmm.
I know that that is not true because I saw who he was when he was born.
Right.
And
Yeah.
those things that I'm seeing here right now is not who he is. This is his ego speaking. And if I want to connect to his soul, I have to not look at the ego's surface, go deeper.
Right.
But I need to be present. Otherwise, my ego speaks to his ego and we're off. No one knows what happens afterwards.
Right.
So allowing yourself, as you say, allowing yourself to be creating that space within you where you can be still for a moment and just ask a couple of questions before you continue with the thoughts.
Right.
That makes an enormous difference in the stories that we start telling ourselves.
And it becomes so simple. And for those listening, I mean, we're taught early on the questions that make a story: who, what, when, where, why, sometimes how, but not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And then so what? What's the benefit to myself? What's the benefit to others? Who's
Mm-hmm.
dictating the benefit? And so when we start asking, why am I doing this? Why do I think I want this? Who benefits from this decision? All these questions are liberating. And just to ask the most simple questions: who? Who's saying this? Me? Did I dream? Is this my dream come true? If this decision was aligned to my highest purpose, fine. But if it's not, then why am I doing it?
Absolutely. I mean, there is always a payoff in everything that we do. There is always a payoff. And to ask oneself, who is getting the payoff? Is it my soul or my ego? Because if it's ego, then you will be doing things that will put you in victimhood. That's the payoff to the ego. It wants you to be in victimhood. So maybe you're doing things because you want to stay in victimhood, or you don't want to stay in victimhood, but you're asleep. Your ego is driving. So
Right.
it keeps you in victimhood instead. To become very, very clear, what's the payoff here? Why? Because there is a payoff. In every action, there is a payoff. Being very, very clear on what the payoff is. That, I think, changed a lot for me when I started looking at it that way. Because otherwise, you habitually allow things to keep you in victimhood.
Right. Right.
That's a powerless place to be in. So if you want to understand yourself better, if you want to be more present in the world, if you want to interact with the world, grow in your consciousness, you can't stay in victimhood. And if you're staying, even if you know all these things, well, then there is a payoff and the ego is getting paid.
Yeah, the payoff is fascinating. You got me thinking, like, if, and this is where people pleasing comes in. If we are doing things to hopefully get approval from someone else, it's never going to be enough, because you can't satiate that fire. You can never jump high enough for the person that wants you to keep jumping, because they're amused with how much you're willing to do. And so it's never, there is no line. But if we can ask ourselves, what's the payoff for me? Is this for my highest good? Is this for my highest truth, my highest purpose, my highest virtue, whatever it is, whether it's working, living, breathing, shopping, buying, sitting, whatever we're doing, even in this moment, like why we do this is for our highest good. This is why we're here on this earth. Whether we have 1 million people watching, 5 people watching, 20, it doesn't matter. This is what we're here for. But we don't have to prove ourselves to anyone. There's no need of like, well, I gotta do that. That payoff is such a good, I really like that. I want to think of that a lot. The payoff.
Yes, the payoff. What is the payoff here? When you start doing that, you also become very aware of why you're doing certain things. Some things we do just habitually.
Right.
But becoming aware, why am I doing what I'm doing, and being brutally honest, because you can't lie to yourself. You need to be brutally honest. Why am I doing what I'm doing right now? Why am I saying these things? Do I want the other person to see me, to listen to me, to love me? What is it that I want?
Right.
What's the payoff here?
Mm.
Really important to understand why we do certain things, why we are focused on certain things. For me, it was being focused habitually on being mistreated.
Mm.
As a young woman, I needed closure, and I couldn't get closure anywhere. So every argument with my husband, or my boyfriend at that time, was about seeing that I was a victim. Even if they didn't do stuff that would make me a victim, I would create something that would look like I was the victim. In my mind, I was the victim because I wanted to control the situation. I wanted to relive this so that I could take some kind of control of it.
Mm.
And that's the wrong way, because I hurt myself and I hurt everyone around me because I stay in victimhood. I need to ask myself, what is the payoff? The first time I asked myself this question and answered it honestly, I got the answer, well, it keeps you in victimhood and you want to stay there. That's the payoff. And I go, but I don't want that. Well, change something.
So good. Yeah. The
Change
payoff is
something.
someone,
Change your way. Yeah.
well, the payoff, you're always seen, but you're always attracting someone to see you, and you or any of us when we're in
Yes.
victim. So
Yes.
there is the payoff. People keep seeing us, but we don't
Yes.
see ourselves. So they don't really see our trueness. It's only what
No.
we put out there.
Yes. And I didn't want to be a victim.
Right.
And yet this is what I was creating, because that was habitual. That is how I grew up.
Right.
That was my life. When I was a victim, others could see me because he victimized me.
Mm.
And that becomes the program, that becomes the language that I use in my mind. That becomes what I visualize about myself, because that is what I know since I was a child. If I do not actively stop and with my free will start asking myself the question, why am I doing this? Because obviously I do not feel good
Right.
with what I'm doing. What's the payoff here? And if the answer is, well, it keeps me in victimhood, and as long as I am a victim, I do not have to take responsibility for things around me or myself. That's another illusion which we can discuss forever, taking responsibility for your own life, which means being able to respond correctly.
Yes.
Until I realize that I need to ask this question, answer brutally honest, and then make the change that needs to be changed. In that change is, so how do I want it to look like? What do I want actually? Do I want to be perceived as a victim, or do I want to be perceived as someone who is growing, open, loving,
Right.
present, taking responsibility for what I present out there?
Right.
And the answer is easy. Of course, I want to be the latter. So I need to take actions when it comes to this. The first actions are to track this narrator and say, nope, not listening to that. That will put me in victimhood. That's not who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it takes time, but it's worth it. You have to be able to use your free will, be present, and as I say, the key is, as soon as you hear negative thoughts about yourself, which feels like a bully speaking to you, you need to say, stop, wait, not that. I want something else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worthy of something else, honoring who you truly are,
Yes.
not honoring the victim within you, honoring the one that I am, who is here present with you. That's what you need to do. Oh, it's so
It
it's so important to do so.
it's everything. It's everything. That a saying that I say is the purest form of accountability is saying the pain stops with me. The
Mhm.
only way we can do that is to know who is talking inside of our minds, who is making the decisions, and where and why and who and what and when, and all these. Either we're doing it for ourselves, for our own sovereignty and volition, or we're doing it to please someone else, and we're victim, and it always creates this come save me model. Come save
Mhm.
me, government. Come save me, religion. Come save me.
Mhm.
Like, wait a minute, I saved myself the minute I stop
Mhm.
being the victim.
Mm. Yes, because what occupies your mind
Mm.
rules your life.
Yeah.
And who,
Yeah.
yes, but who is the one? I mean, you're the one listening to the talk in your mind. You're the one that can see what occupies your mind, which means that you are also the one who can say, wait a minute, I don't want that. I want this instead in your own mind.
Yeah.
That's where the power is. It's always there, it's not on the outside. If you feel like you need to be saved from the outside, then you're not aware of what is going on in your mind, and it makes you powerless when you are born with all the power you will need. Every single one of us.
It reminds me of when I was growing up, nothing was good enough. Like
Yeah,
literally
I
nothing was
know.
good enough, and
Mm,
nothing was good enough. And and so I always tried to seek love by proving that I was good enough, smart enough, tough enough, strong enough, all these things, enough.
mhm,
And I remember telling my dad, I called my dad, um, I'm 2 years in business. I'm a young entrepreneur. I'm married. I'm doing my best with no business education, straight from the newsroom to the boardroom, as I used to joke around. And
mhm,
he said, "What do you think? You're better than me?" I was just talking about what I was doing. And what do you think you're better than me? And it was like it's like a harpoon straight through my heart. And I hung up. I was crying, and it took me many years to realize I kept myself playing so small because the
mhm,
minute I would come up to that ceiling,
mhm,
what do you think? You're better than me? And I got pushed back down, pushed back down, pushed back down. And it was this
mm,
constant cycle in my life, not just with him, but with everyone. The dynamic was
mhm,
if I play too big, if I'm too me, someone's going to push me down, or I'm going to get hurt, or someone's going to attack me physically or emotionally.
mm,
And that kept me in the worst cycle. I hated myself being in that victim. I mean, I was suicidal constantly. I mean, I attempted when I was 20, but I mean, constantly in this loop of, well, then I'm broken. I hate myself. Like if I can't get the validation and I'm trying as hard as I possibly could,
mhm,
humanly possible, I gave everything and it still
mhm,
wasn't enough. Well, then I have one of two choices. I can give up, which I was in
mhm,
the give up mindset, and many people do give up, sadly, or I can come to this place and say, is that true?
mhm,
Do I need any person outside myself's validation, acknowledgement, love?
mhm,
No, it's a nice to have, but it's not essential. The only essential comes from when I know myself and I reclaim the sovereignty of my own mind, body, soul, spirit, heart, essence, aura, all of it. And
mhm,
that's the most liberating thing. I would give this to anyone. If I could bless every single person on this planet, it'd be to bless them with their own sovereignty, to wake up and like, oh, I don't need to please government. Fucking government. What does this mean? I don't need to please my parents. Or
mhm,
it's, am I pleasing myself, not
mhm,
from an ego victim, but from a sovereign, compassionate, I am space.
mhm,
Like that's everything. That's everything.
mhm. Yeah, that is to be present. It's not about pleasing, actually. It's about following your excitement and
Yeah.
following your desires and your passions and your curiosity. It's even better to say your excitement and curiosity when you start following that, because when you're pleasing others, you're always focused on what they want. So you're not following your curiosity, you're following your ego program in order to
Right.
please them so that you will get the payoff, which is their love,
Right.
which is an illusion, by the way, because you cannot feel whole unless you feel it from
Yeah.
within. It's
It's-
beautiful to have love from the outside. It's beautiful to have loving people around you, but it won't make you whole unless you allow that love to come out from you, including you in that equation.
Mm,
This is why, in relationships, when you come into a relationship and you think, oh, I found my soulmate, they complete me.
right. Right.
Well, there is a danger in this, because what you actually do want when you come into a relationship is to feel whole and to explore things and then share this with another being who feels
Oh,
whole.
yes. Yes.
If you feel like half and that's a half, then you're outsourcing your power, because if that half doesn't love you anymore, then you will stay half.
That's right.
It's about being whole, being present, knowing what it is that you want to explore here, knowing what you want in this reality,
Yes.
and that it comes from your heart space where you allow your soul to be what it came here to be: compassionate, loving, curious, courageous, all
Yes.
of these things. That
Yes.
is what makes you whole. But if you come from a broken home like you and I do,
Yeah.
then you come out as half a being, because you have not been able to explore your full self
That's right.
with the curiosity. You're always doing things in order to get love from the outside.
Hmm.
That is that half of you is asleep.
Yeah.
The other half is listening to the ego.
The way
So
I've learned it
under
is you could say one and one makes three. So one whole plus another whole makes a third. The third is the relationship. So then when
yes,
two whole beings are playing with the variables, we can look at the relationship as this relationship, what we both want, yes, or let's
yeah,
change it and then we can tweak, but it doesn't. You're right. That half is the it's
hmm,
where emotional enmeshment, codependency comes in, all sorts of terrible
absolutely,
things happen. And then it's like you're a
yeah,
buoy in the ocean versus being the ocean itself.
yes, and lifting each other. I mean, for me, it's like if I look at a sunset and my husband is with me and we look at it together, I could look at it alone and I would still feel the beauty of it. I'm not half a person. I will be present fully and I will, but it wouldn't make it complete in my head unless I can share it with him. And
Mm,
it's the
yeah.
sharing. It's the sharing. I need to be a whole person in order to have a whole experience that I can share with someone else. So that's how we grow consciousness together, not lock in closer, because that's not love. That is something else. That is, as you say, codependency.
Yes.
If you allow the ego to tell you that you are not worthy of love, that you cannot be the powerful one, well, then you will look for someone to complete you.
Mm,
And you will forever stay in that powerless state because you're not looking at the truth about who you are.
mm.
Each and every one of us is this truth. We're all whole when we're born. I know this because when you look at a child, you wouldn't say, well, that's half a child.
Right. Right.
That's an entire child. It is whole, perfect, full, cannot be otherwise when it comes into this world. It's what we do with it afterwards. The limitations and the borders that we put in the mind that
Right.
creates this halfness where we never feel full and whole.
Mm, right.
We need to find that within ourselves and to know that the truth. My book is called Know the Truth, and this is the only
Mm,
truth I know. Each and every one of us has the same source. We all come from the same source, which is limitless, it is infinite, it is powerful, it is compassionate, it is loving. This is who we all are. If you're speaking to yourself with a voice that does not include these things, ego is speaking, and that is never true.
that's right.
Never.
That's right.
Okay, so I know that we are
We did
reaching
it.
our time.
We
It's
did it.
so, oh my goodness. An hour goes so fast. I
It does
was in
go
the middle of things.
it does go fast. It's so beautiful. And Terrell
Oh,
and Okan and I think Jolin's whoever tuned in today. Thank you guys for watching. And yeah.
I just want to end this Sunday live today because I opened my book at one page. You just randomly opened it, and here's the truth book. I will read it. It's so accurate here for what we've been talking about. It says, if it feels good, trust it as true. If it feels bad, discharge it as not true. It's Truth Thoughts number 70, and it's mind-boggling because I just opened the book and there it
That's
is.
beautiful.
It's
No
so
accidents
beautiful.
whatsoever.
Nope,
No accidents.
no accident. Yes.
Oh, you are so
Thank you,
awesome. Thank
everyone.
you. Yeah, thank you, everyone.